Alright, hello and welcome back to the Greatest Attorney Chronicles. After a bit of a break to get the Deltarune chapters out of the way, I'm pretty excited to get back to the murder mystery here. Starting a bit late tonight, but I should be able to at least get to the first intermission and exam. I don't know why I said exam. Intermission and episode 3, The Adventure of the Runaway Room.
Glancing over my records of the late last century, I am faced by the events of a certain bitter winter. A murder in a carriage as it sped through dense London fog in the dead of night. Though the victim and the perpetrator were the only ones inside, there were multiple witnesses to the crime itself.
Oh, because it's a movie.
However, none could have imagined at the time that such a seemingly obvious case as this would end in such a horrendous manner.
Ooh, interesting.
My friend, Mr. Herlock Sholmes, once said of the incident, "I believe that perhaps that case was indeed the prelude. The beginning of a long concerto that impressive Japanese student and I were to play together."
Now, as nice as these are, remember the last time it wasn't entirely accurate. The last one suggests the speckled band was a snake, but it was not.
Amazing. Is this really just a railway station?
Railway station or not, I've never seen such an enormous building before.
And look at all the steam locomotives. This country is incredible.
And to think that Napoleon Bonaparte said that steam engines would never catch on. Brian's Cocoa, best in London.
I feel like I'm dreaming.
So this is the capital of Great Britain.
The empire which the sun never sets.
Where to?
Oh, hello.
Climb aboard. I'll take you wherever you want to go.
In that case, the Supreme Court in Whitehall, if you wouldn't mind.
My pleasure. I suppose you're visiting students from abroad, eh?
Yes.
Thought so. Well then, I hope you enjoy your stay. And welcome to the centre of the world, Great Britain's mighty capital, London.
Ah, the Supreme Court. The 18th of February, 9:21 a.m., British Supreme Court. Lord Chief Justice's office. What an incredible place. It's so imposing, it's almost suffocating. This place is breathtaking. It looks like a fortress. There are some still buildings like this in Japan now, of course, but they've only been built in the few short decades since we opened our borders to the outside world. An authentic example like this has a quite a different impact, don't you agree? A far cry from the wooden paper most of our buildings are constructed from. It's certainly unfamiliar. But I think there's more to the different construction materials. What is this place again? This is the Lord Chief Justice's office, Nadahodo. In the Supreme Court, Great Britain, the Lord Chief Justice, that's a lot of titles. We had instructions drawn at this time. If circumstances were different, we were supposed to let the Lord Chief Justice know we had arrived from Japan. But Kazuma can't. No. Instead, we're here in a different capacity, as envoys to report the news of Kazuma's death. Yes. And having delivered a message, an envoy's duty is done. So we'd have hand. In other words, if we want to remain here in Great Britain, I have to place as the new law student selected for the study tour. Yes, which means you need qualifications as a lawyer. I've been studying for this whole month. Here in Great Britain is the justice who appoints lawyers. That's the second reason why we're here as a lawyer. That's the only way we're able to remain here in London. Hope I'm up to scratch. Ah, good morning. Oh. I trust you aren't too exhausted by your long voyage from Japan. I'm 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 47 seconds late. My apologies. Oh wow, even 10 minutes will be surprising, but we're not too bothered. I mean, we're entirely at the whims of Great Britain right now. We're never sitting around with nothing much to do. How fortunate. Alright, so introductions. I am Male Strongheart, Lord Chief Justice of the Empire. Dang, and I feel like a little mouse under a foot. Don't lose to a mouse. Don't be a mouse, not lose one. Well, to be fair, an elephant... Well, actually, no, the Mythbusters tested this. So elephants may not be afraid of mice, but they do try and avoid them where possible. Some think it might still be a matter of fear, but they just kind of... It could also just be a matter of they don't want to hurt the mice. It's an honor to meet you, Lord Chief Justice Strongheart. I'm Ryanosuke Naruhodo from the Empire of Japan. Well, Mr. Naruhodo. Welcome to London, the capital of our glorious British Empire. Yes, thank you. Let's ask about London itself. I mean, we're here anyway. So, what are your impressions of our capital so far? How do you like London? Oh, well. Help. I've been so nervous ever since I got here that I can't remember a single thing about the city. It's simply splendid, isn't it? Oh. We had a wonderful view of some of London's streets from the carriage on the way here from the station. Everything is so impressive. Grand. I must say I'm almost lost for words. I'm glad to hear you like it. The city boasts tramways, piped water and gas, even cables supplying electricity. We spearhead every revolutionary new technology in the world. Every visitor to London is astounded. Oh yes, astounded is the word. Look at those big clockwork gears in back. Oh yeah, we're in the we're supposed to be in the clock tower, I think. Thanks for saving me there, Susato. Everyone here seems so jolly and full of vigor. See, we're so into being the British spirit, we're adding U's to these words. Yes, there's much excitement about the upcoming Great Exposition we'll be hosting here in London. Great Exposition? Cultural and technological achievements from around the globe are exhibited here in our great city. It will be the greatest spectacle of its kind in history. It will make the Paris' World Fair look like a toy shop. Gosh, I can hardly imagine how magnificent it's going to be. Oh yeah, they still have that big old rivalry with France going on. Great Britain's capital city is nothing but magnificent. London is the center of the modern world. Even if you do say so yourself. The sun will never set on our great empire. Perhaps it is fate that in these progressive times we welcome visitors from the land of the rising sun. Oh, I can only converse. Won't let me look around, unfortunately. Lord Chief Justice, I think you're expecting a student of law for the study tour, weren't you? Absolutely. Mr. Kazuma Asogi, if my memory serves. That's right. The British government has already been telegraphed a full report on the situation. I understand the young man lost his life aboard the steamship for our shores. It's amazing the news reached him before we even arrived. My country naturally extends its deepest condolences to yours. Thank you. And you honored this appointment specifically to inform me of the news? Yes. We are here in the capacity of envoys from Japan to report the sad news in person. And they tell me the Japanese are a people of protocol and courtesy. I see that is true. And it is with some regret that I must inform you. The death of the young lawyer means the study tour arrangement can no longer proceed. Well, if you would hear us out, Lord Strongheart. What do you have to say, madam? It is about the study tour, actually. Mr. Naruhodo here would like to make a proposal. Would he now? Well, Mr. Naruhodo. Well, this is it then. The moment of truth. continuing the study tour. The thing is, Lord Strongheart, I was wondering if perhaps you would consider allowing the study tour to go ahead. Don't misunderstand me. Britain would ideally like to see the tour go ahead. Without a lawyer from her country, there's nothing to be done. Well, in that case, what if there was someone else? Another lawyer from Japan, I mean. Is there something I don't know? Only a single lawyer was invited to Great Britain from your country. That was Mr. Asogi. At least that is what I've been led to understand. Well, the thing about that is, this really isn't going to go well at all. I just can't seem to find the right words to say this to them. Mr. Naruhodo, I could ruin things here if I'm not careful. What am I going to say? If there is someone else here from Japan who could be described as a lawyer, it's... Actually, there's no one. It's Miss Susato. Nah, she's only the assistant. Alright, so I'm thinking either we have to go with no one because technically I'm not appointed a lawyer yet. Well, let's take it. Let's man up. It's me. I can do it. Is that so? I mean, I don't have any qualifications as such, but no qualifications, you say. And yet you still claim to be a lawyer. I have acted as a lawyer in court before, only once as it happens, and I had Kazuma to help me, and I was the accused, but glossing over the details. I've been spending a spare moment on the journey here to Great Britain studying, and learned all about British law and court proceedings while I was on board the SS Buria. The voyage from Japan is some 50 days, I believe. Not what you might call a full education. To become a qualified lawyer here in Britain, not only do you need a university degree in law, you must also complete several years of training. I realize it's far too short a period of time, but I can't just go back to Japan. Kazuma, Mr. Sogi's journey had only just begun. Coming here on the study tour was all he thought about. I have to carry on and do everything he planned to do. I know it must sound like I have an overly inflated opinion of myself, but I would do anything to prove I have what it takes. Any test you care to set to me. Just one chance, that's all I'm asking. Please. 31 seconds. I'm sorry? Your opening statement there, Mr. Naruhodo. It was 31 seconds long. Not too brief, not too protracted. A perfectly judged appeal, I would say. Which is a skill that would stand you in good stead as a lawyer. Oh, thank you. Alright, so you're willing to put those words to trial, are you? Well, I'm all for entertainment. Let me ask you one thing first, sir. Yes? You say you intend to do everything Mr. Sogi planned to do. Are you firmly set on that path? Well, yes, that's my intention. The fact that those words were highlighted, yeah, it's pretty clear that Asogi had a plan here beyond just learning law. But we don't know what that is, but it's entirely possible everyone else does. I see. Am I imagining things, or did his expression just alter a fraction there all of a second? Very well, you have your wish. I will give you one chance. A test to become a specially certified lawyer. Whether you pass or fail is entirely down to you. Really? Alright, what is this test you speak of? Alright, what form will the test take exactly? Tell me, Miss Naruhodo, what do you consider the role of a lawyer to be? Well, defending people, of course. Well said. Very straightforward and blunt. So, we're going to have you defend someone. Huh? Your timing is perfect, in fact. There's an apt trial about to begin later today. No advocate has been appointed for the defense yet, so this will be welcome news for them. Today? Oh, straight away? If you manage to secure a verdict of not guilty, you'll have passed my test. What could be simpler? How do I get myself in these situations? Well, this is probably the most ideal situation, really. Yeah? Could I ask what kind of trial is it, Lord Strongheart? That's a good question. I remember. It is a murder trial. Oh my. I guess it would be a bit much to expect a parking violation to be the first, case. It was in London. A murder! An extremely simple case to understand. You really can't lose. That's easy to say. But I should mention, just in case, if the defendant's found guilty, he'll of course be sentenced to capital punishment. Capital? He'll be put to death. Here in Great Britain, murderers are sent to the gallows without exception. Presumably, you read that much in your short C-based introduction to British law. We can't possibly agree to such a test. We'd be toying with a man's life. I'm the Lord Chief Justice, and I've decided it is acceptable. Oh, but you can't do that, can you? There's no need to overcomplicate this. All you have to do is ensure that you don't lose. So the defendant may live or die depending on how well I perform in court. If I lose, he'll be hanged. Mr. Naruhodo, you've come to me claiming to be a lawyer. If you want me to take you seriously, you need to prove you're willing to do a lawyer's job. And you say you intend to see through the will of your compatriot, Mr. Asogi. I would like to understand how far you're willing to go in order to make that happen. He's testing my resolve. What's the matter? You've fallen silent. I'm sorry, but time is pressing. The trial begins shortly. I need an answer from you now. What's it to be? What do I say? Do I agree to this absurd test? This is definitely a but thou must. If I say no, I'll be forced to do it, but I think it would be well within Ryanosuke's character to... Alright then. If I have to give you a decision now, my answer is... I can't do it. I can't get the words out. Okay, so we can't say it either way. 15 seconds. Decision-making needs work if you want to be a lawyer. That was too slow. So it's as I suspected, is it? I'm sorry. You have noble intentions, but lack the resolve to see them through. The test is cancelled. Thank you for stopping by. Go and acquire a ticket for passage back to the east tomorrow. This conversation's over. Yes, Lord Strongarm. Thank you for offering me a chance. Mr. Naruhodo. I'm sorry, Miss Suzato, but what could I do? It's alright, I understand. You do. It's not an easy decision to choose whether to defend a man in these circumstances, but resolve has absolutely nothing to do with it. What are you trying to say, madam? I think what Miss Suzato means is that no matter how badly I'd like to be recognized as a lawyer and stay here in Great Britain, to risk another man's life by treating his one and only chance as a trial so trivially would be unforgivable, and I feel exactly the same way. I'm sure the defendant won't see this trial as a test, as some kind of experiment. A lawyer may fight for his clients in court day after day. For each one of those clients, a particular day they stand in the dock may be the only chance they have to fight to prove their innocence. Oh yeah, for a lawyer it's Tuesday, but for them it's the most important case of their life. No, I was wrong. I'm not qualified to do that job yet. I'm sorry for wasting your precious time, Lord Chief Justice. Wait, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, was there something else? It's approximately 20 minutes by carriage to the Old Bailey from here. If you leave immediately, you should be there in time. Oh, but I just said... I was quite serious in what I told you. The defendant in this case has literally no one to advocate for him. What? At this point, he can't hope to find someone to represent him. The trial will begin without a defense, and if that happens, there's only one possible outcome. He will receive the most severe sentence a judge can pass down. That's awful, but that is the truth. Why does it have to be like this? Please don't expect an answer to every question. The cold hard truth of the matter is that there's only one person now with a chance to save this man from this very miserable end. And that is you. I'm really his only hope, huh? So, what do you say now, madam? Oh, me? What do you mean? You said it wasn't an easy decision to choose whether to defend a man in these circumstances, and I agree, but my estimation is purely and simply a matter of resolve. Our time is up here. I have a meeting to attend, and I must leave in 2 minutes and 16 seconds. What is he, the rabbit from Alice in Wonderland? So, venture into our great city and enjoy yourselves. He's gone. The Old Bailey. If we're going to do this, Mr. Naruhodo, we must leave at once. Suzato, can I just ask you something? Careful, from this position, I can perform a Suzato takedown in an instant. I know. You're Lord Strongheart, the trial starts immediately. If I need to throw you, I will. You know, you could just say, I think we should hurry to the courtroom. If you need to ask me anything, you'd better wait until we're at the Old Bailey. We're gonna catch a cab, we may make it to the courthouse in time. Looks like we made it. 18th of February, 9:45 a.m. The Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber. Oh, thank goodness, we're in time. There's still a good 15 minutes till the trial begins. I never knew a horse-drawn carriage go so fast. I thought my teeth were gonna rattle loose. Did you hear what I said to the driver when we climbed aboard? Get us to our destination in 5 minutes, driver. And there's a guinea for you. That's one of my favorite lines from Sherlock Holmes stories. It worked quite perfectly. I'm not sure why you're so pleased. I thought we were going to die and we had to pay gold for the privilege. Oh, so it means gold. Well, at least we arrived here as the trial started. Yeah, I suppose there's that. I don't understand it. The court clerk said the defendant should be here, but there's no sign of him at all. So this is the Old Bailey. Even this room for defendants to wait in is grand. Are you right, Mr. Naruhodo? I'm feeling tense, that's all. This place gives me the same sense of foreboding I remember from the Supreme Court in Japan. An oppressive air, almost as if the building itself is going to crush whoever's about to be sentenced. Feels like only yesterday that I was the one about to be crushed. Yes, whoever the man you're supposed to defend is, I imagine he's feeling very alone at this moment. Top of the morning to you, madam, sir. What are you doing following me here? Things are fair desperate, aren't they? I'm sorry. Oh, would you look at those expressionless faces from the east, are you? We're from Japan, yes. Ah, Japan, is it right? Say no more. So, how much do you... No, we're just here because... To explain, I've been there myself, so I have. No place to go, not to eat, barely a penny to your name, and one faraway land. Well, actually, we haven't found a place to stay yet, no. Just grant us, let me start by giving you 1,000 gold. Say nothing now. 1,000? Please, Miss Suzato, you don't have to shout. But 1,000 is enough to build a mansion in the most prestigious area in Tokyo. Wait, what? This is nothing to me at all. I'm not sure I have sufficient funds to weather a rainy day, you see. I have enough wealth to buy the city of London 2 or 3 times over. Could that much rain even fall in one day? Even so, we couldn't possibly accept such a large sum of money. Ah, that didn't mean the eye. Don't get me wrong, fella. I'm not giving it to you, no strings attached. I'll be wanting you to do something for me. Oh, to be honest, it's a little embarrassing. You see, the trial is about to begin to see is for me good self here. I'll be in the dock. So now, what I want you to do is come along with me and stand beside me. Officially, you'll be my lawyer, but that's just a little detail now. Oh, well, the thing is... Oh, don't worry about a thing. All you have to do is stand up there next to me. Nothing more. Otherwise, you see, the trial's gonna start without me having any kind of representation at all. So it was true. The Lord Chief Justice wasn't just making it all up. I'm terribly sorry to have to ask, but does that mean you're the defendant in this trial? Luster and Blazes, do you not know who I am? Me, one of London's biggest names? No, sorry. We've only just arrived in the city, you see. I see. I suppose it's altogether impossible. Well, just next to Hyde Park, there's the center of London, there'd be another beautiful park. Park what? It's called McGilded Park, full of blossoming flowers, spring, and sing birds and whatnot. I donated to the city, I did. Oh, an entire park. In central London. City of Smiles, that's my vision for London. There's nothing Magnus McGilded couldn't do for the city, and its queer old people. That's amazing. I mean, real extraordinary. But Now them gone, same good for none criminal. Me, Magnus Begilded. And the matter of the London police, I ask you? Alright, don't pass out. Alright, don't pass out. It's Naruhodo. Perhaps now would be a good time to introduce ourselves while the gentleman catches his breath. Good idea. Mr. McGilded, the thing is, we're actually here in London to study British law. We're law students on a study tour from Japan, you see. So if you don't have a lawyer for the trial yet, and you'd be happy to put yourself in our hands, we'll do our best. What was I after saying? I given you 1,000 to stand next to me, haven't I? Well, yes, but I wasn't really offering to stand up there next to you. Oh, I think I see what's going on here. Sorry. I know what you're thinking. This chance of fella claims to have more money than the Queen, but if that's true, why the blazes can't he hire the finest lawyer in all of England? Actually, I am rather curious. Must be because he did it. Well, not at all, actually. Although, it is a little strange, to be honest. Why you don't have a lawyer, I mean. That would be the fault of the Reaper. I'm sorry, did he just say Reaper? Aye, the Grim Reaper of the Bailey, Lord Barak von Zykes. He's the prosecutor. The prosecutor is Grim Reaper? When Van Zykes stands the prosecution, they call the accused his sacrificial lambs. And to this day, in every single trial in which he's been the prosecutor, the accused has been lambed. What? So it reached the desperate situation where no one's willing to stand in the defense against the fella at all. You could say he's a living legend of the Old Bailey. Goodness, Lord Barak von Zykes. Must be exceptionally talented prosecutor, then. Talented isn't the word you're looking for, ma'am. It's cursed. Cursed? What on earth? The defendant is summoned, and his counsel. Please make way to the courtroom. This trial's about to begin. His counsel, that would be me. Oh, 'tis time. Well then, fella, don't let me down. Oh, but, I don't know anything about the case. You haven't told me what happened. Till you showed your face here, I've made up my mind, so I had. I'm sorry. I've decided I'll have to defend myself in there. How would that have worked? But then you have an appearance. As a student of law, wouldn't you know? It is no accident, I can assure you of that. It is fate. Don't cold feet now, please. Remember, his very life's on the line. I literally know nothing about this case. Actual literally. I don't even know anything about this man who stands accused. In fact, the only thing I do know is that I can't just turn my back on him. True. Even if he's a rich jerk, he still doesn't deserve to be up there to me to suffer alone. Mr. Naruhodo, this man has no one. He'll stand alone in that courtroom, armed with nothing to defend himself. Yeah, something Cosm would never have allowed to happen. Counsel of Defense, what are you doing? If you're late for the start of the trial, you'll lose your right to stand. Let's go. I'll be right there. It's happening then. My first trial in a British court. I hope you're watching over me, Kazuma. Because I have no idea how I'm gonna manage this. Oh my, this court is way more elaborate than the one in Japan. It even has fire, which honestly seems like it might be a hazard now that I look at it. I mean, yeah, the old school lanterns, oil lanterns stuff did use legitimate fire, but they also clearly had glass and stuff to keep them from, you know, burning the building down. These don't. So this is the highest court in Great Britain, the Old Bailey. The centuries of history in this place is palpable, isn't it? It's so different from the Supreme Court of Japan. It feels both imposing and serene at the same time. The atmosphere almost makes words feel redundant. Whatever the country, determining a person's guilt or innocence is always a solemn affair. May I say something, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, yes, what? Your eyes look ready to pop out of your head again. I know, but I can't help it. He's like a vampire. The judge. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. We are here today to determine the guilt or innocence of Mr. Magnus McGilded. I will now call upon the counsels for the prosecution defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is fully prepared. That must be the Reaper of Bailey. He really does look fully prepared to dispatch his next poor victim to the underworld. Counsel for the defense. You appear to be Eastern. Do you speak English? Huh? Oh, yes, of course. Sorry. But he asked if the defense was ready, and I couldn't be further from ready if I tried. Those eyes please me. Nipponese. They shroud your fear, your doubt, your trepidation. They run wild, clinging to some phantom notion of courage. The quintessential look of a sacrificial lamb. Ugh, a cold shiver just ran down my spine all the way to the tips of my toes. Now, Mr. McGilded. Yes, my lord. You stand accused of murder, a capital offense. You could be sent to the gallows if found guilty. Are you quite sure you wish to entrust your defense to this, foreigner? As I've always said, my lord, 'tis a grand thing to give opportunities to the young, even if the fellow's a student from some little island off in the far east. It's not the British way to ignore the dangers and give. Is it not the British way to ignore the dangers and give those less fortunate a fair chance? I like to think the acts of chivalry do the great British Empire proud. Listen to Gilded. What a fine gentleman London has in him. He donated £5,000 to the government the other day. Mother, will you please go and play in the McGilded Park? It seems as though everyone in the public gallery is firmly behind Mr. McGilded. That's definitely welcome news, and he certainly has a way with words. Not surprised he couldn't convince anyone to defend him. Eloquently put, Mr. Gilded, and most laudable sentiments. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I am sure I need hardly remind you that you 6 members of the public have been selected for your impartiality. Are you ready to proceed? I had to ask how that guy has a knife, but then I remembered Rinosuke has a literal sword with him right now, so I guess weapons are fine. Journal boy. Yes, my lord. If the task is to send rudders to the gallows or the belong, I'm more than ready. After the manner his lordship always said we should dispose of rubbish properly. Naturally, I agree. I agree. They'll soon be wishing they never set eyes on me. Feel a chill. Oh, don't mind me, my dears. I'll just be getting on with my knitting. Must finish these bits for my grandson. I'm not a hodo. Those people are the jury, yes. That's something we don't have in Japan yet. That's right, I've only ever read about it. Here in Great Britain, the court's final verdict depends on the opinions of these jurors. The judge passes sentence according to law. The jurors determine guilt based on common sense. The defendant is ultimately judged from 2 completely different points of view. But how exactly do the jurors give their verdict? That I don't know, but I'm sure it will become clear as the trial progresses. Yes. Prosecutor von Zykes. My lord. It has been a number of years since we've seen you here in the courtroom. I thought you'd renounced your fame. I didn't know it was the Reaper of Bailey, my lord. Infamy rather than fame, I would say. But yes, 5 years have passed since I last spreaded my wings in this capacity. So what brings you back? Is there some change of circumstance in which the court should be aware? I leave that to your imagination, my lord. So the Reaper's been out of action for 5 years. Might have to choose a day of all days to make a comeback. Don't lose heart, Mr. Naruhodo. As you wish, sir. The court nevertheless welcomes your return. Now then, opening statements, I think. A summary of the case, if you please. Certainly, my lord. As your lordship is aware, this is a case of overwhelming simplicity. You must be the only ones in here who aren't aware. The incident took place that evening. 3 days passed. The hour was some minutes after 10. The victim was a maker of building bricks known to the community as the thrice-fired mason. Sorry, thrice? He was a very accomplished craftsman. The bricks he fired were said to be almost indestructible. The victim's corpse was found in an omnibus in service in the streets of London at the time. The dagger that had been thrust in the victim's abdomen is believed to be the ultimate weapon of the case. It is the autopsy report from investigating medical officer at the Scotland Yard. Thank you, Counsel. I shall accept that photographic evidence. And one further item of evidence. The prosecution wishes to submit these as well. And these are... Oh! Goodness, is that blood, Counsel? Yes, my lord. Seized by the policeman who arrived on the scene. These are gore-soaked gloves. Taken from the hands of the accused when he was arrested. Oh, wait, what? Mr. Gilded's gloves? Had blood on them? Yes, I will accept these as evidence as well. How'd I get into this? Well, first of all, let's take a look at the court record here. Armband. An armband I inherited from Kazuma. This identifies the wearer of a defense lawyer throughout Japan. These are the scales of justice. They're a symbol of the defense, aren't they? Yes, that's right. The scales are a symbol of fairness, to show that all are treated equally in the eyes of the law. And they're warning those who enter the court without an impartial mind. But they're a mark of the defense. It would be more auspicious if they were more heavily on the not-guilt side, I think. Very impartial, I'm sure. Oh, what's this? The lawyer's name is embroidered on the inside here. Kazuma Sogi. This was his band, of course. He always had his heart. Set him to study too in Great Britain. I'm sure he would have found the truth he longed for here. But he lost his life before he even had the chance to see the place. I have such a strong sense of his hopes and dreams when you look at this armband, though. Alright, Autopsy Report. Male, age 54, brickmaker. Stabbed once in the abdomen with a knife while journeying on an omnibus. Died to internal hemorrhaging resulting from the trauma. Crime scene photograph. Alright, we'll have to pay attention to everything we can here. Now, these gloves, these are interesting. Blood. This is definitely blood, isn't it? Not the most pleasant sight to be confronted with on a first day in London. Well, nothing will come of grumbling now. No. By the way, is Mr. McGilded right-handed? Yes, I believe so. He was toying with a coin in his right hand a little earlier. Pity. If only he'd been left-handed. I think blood on either glove would be fairly incriminating, really. Yeah, but it being on the left one would have, it being on the right one when he's left-handed would at least give some greater deniability. Sheesh, I'm back into a corner before I'm even started. Now, continuing. According to the driver of the omnibus, there were only 2 passengers traveling inside his vehicle at the time. Only 2? Obviously, one of those passengers was the deceased brickmaker, Mr. Mason. The other was the accused, Magnus McGilded. Well, rather damning circumstances, to say the least. Defendant, what say you? Well, of course, I have no recollection of such a thing. Mr. McGilded? To be sure, I rode the omnibus that evening, but In a carriage, I'm taken with a fierce tiredness and always succumb to it. Are you claiming to have been asleep the whole time? It is the motion of my carriage, my lord. Littleton it is, and when I opened my eyes again, it was a desperate sight before me, the body of a man I'd never laid eyes on before in my life. Now I ask ye, what good old soul wouldn't rush to the help of a fella bleeding from the stomach? I wasn't about to start worrying about me gloves now, was I? I reached out to give the man a hand. So the blood got on the gloves then, after the man had been killed. Unfortunately, that statement of the driver's is only the beginning. Wait, what? That's not all of it? There were multiple witnesses to the precise moment at which the brickmaker was fatally stabbed. Order. When the killing took place, only the victim and the accused were inside the carriage, and there were witnesses to the crime. This is not just a case of compelling evidence. It is the nail in the coffin for the accused. Oh, get it, because he's basically a vampire of sorts. Thank you, Captain. All the circumstances of the crime have been made quite clear. I think we'll hear testimony from these witnesses first. Your wish is my command. Bailiff, bring the witnesses in at once. Now, witnesses, your names and occupations, please. My name is Well People. Everyone calls me Beppo. I drive an omnibus in the East End. Bruce Fairplay. I'm a banker in the city. My name's First. Lady First. I make hats for gents. Let us begin by confirming the facts. 30 days ago, at a short time after 10 o'clock in the evening, all of you were present in the stand were in an omnibus and witnessed the aforementioned incident. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Quite right. Yes, sir. That's right, sir. Well then, let's proceed to your formal testimonies, please. Each of you will tell the court precisely what you saw. Witness testimony. What the witnesses saw. It was the last bus of the evening, so I had a few customers. I remember it well. The victim and the man accused of killing him were sat next to each other inside the bus. Then out of the blue, the accused just reached over and plunged a knife into his guts. That's right, he stabbed him. I screamed. Couldn't help it. I screamed out. As soon as he got the scream, I stopped my bus and then I saw it too. Unambiguous testimony, I must say. Exactly, my lord. These men witnessed the incident with their own eyes. I'd like to ask a question if I may. Yes, Consul. Well, this testimony makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Why not? Well, the incident took place inside a moving carriage, didn't it? As has been clearly stated from the outset, yes. Well, in that case, how could those witnesses have possibly seen what happened? There's no way they could have seen the inside of a moving carriage, right? Oh, quaint. I've read the civilization Eastern countries was a good century. Eastern nation was a good century behind our own. But you're here in London yourself, and you're really so ignorant about our omnibuses, huh? Tell me, my neat friend, have you even traveled in an omnibus? Well, no. I only arrived in London this morning. No matter. I've arranged for us all to see for ourselves the actual scene of the crime, that is. Oh, what do you mean? The actual scene? A carriage is designed to be moved, after all. Perhaps you understand that much. Yes. The omnibuses in which this bloody crime took place is here today, in this very building. Here. What? Ah, the entire carriage? Bailiff. Bring forth the stricken omnibus. Trying to give us a kind of vampire-like accent, but I feel like it's the accent's slipping a lot. So that's an omnibus. The omnibus. And for the record, I have noticed that quite a few characters are being insensitive to one another, but given this is the turn of the 20th century, I figure it makes sense that some of them are going to be a bit rough towards one another. This is before. After all, this is when the world really started opening up to that sort of thing. Also, I'm pretty sure our vampire buddy is intentionally supposed to be a jerk. Don't worry, he'll get his when we get our first not guilty verdict in this case. Can't believe they can bring something so enormous in here. Great Britain's courtrooms are amazing. As you can see, the omnibus is pulled by 2 horses and can carry up to 8 passengers. 4 passengers seated inside the enclosed cabin, and another 4 on the rooftop deck above. Every Londoner knows that the best views of the city's architecture and sights are on the top. And I should point out for our foreign guests, there's a skylight in the roof, allowing a view of the interior from the seats above. Ah, skylight. The penny drops at last, I see. These 2 gentlemen were occupying the rooftop seats on this omnibus when the murder took place. That is how they came to witness the grim incident, through the skylight. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Well, counsel, this is the first. All my years behind the bench, I never experienced a crime scene itself being brought into the courtroom. There are a number of important clues remaining inside the carriage, my lord. I would like to submit the omnibus itself as evidence. That is the prosecution's wish. Very well, I see no reason why not. The omnibus is hereby formally accepted as evidence. I can't believe it, the entire crime scene's entered as evidence? Well, apparently it's unusual even in Britain, because as the judge just said, never in his years has he had the crime scene brought to the courtroom. Yes, Great Britain is simply extraordinary. I could help myself a lot by giving the omnibus a thorough examination, seeing as it's here. Let us continue with the proceedings, then. Your cross-examination, counsel. Phoenix Wright omnibus. So this is the roof of the omnibus. Oh, you must have a wonderful view of London's streets from up here. So people sit all the way up here on bitter winter nights with the cold rushing past them? Have to pay money? I can't imagine how cold it must feel. That just made me think of something horrible. Can you imagine being dragged around the city in the freezing cold as punishment? Perhaps that is the real price you pay to stay out late. London 5th Avenue. Can I look under it? No. Alright, we should be able to look inside. Well, let's open the door and go inside, shall we? The scent of murder. It's horrible. So anyone in the front wouldn't be able to look through the skylight, because look at this. Oh, what's this? Ah, that's a poster for the Great Exhibition that's due to start 6 months from now. There's a lot of focus being drawn to the Crystal Tower, the centerpiece of the whole exposition. Ooh, the Crystal Tower. It's under construction already, I believe. People all over London must be fizzling with excitement at the prospect of such a grand event. There it is. That's blood that's soaked into the seat. Victims, obviously. Yes, and that would be a seat clearly visible from the roof deck. Did you really stab someone in full view of the other passengers like that, I wonder? It was after dark, and there was a lamp in here, so perhaps the culprit couldn't see anything outside the skylight. Whichever way you look at it, it doesn't seem like it was a planned attack. The seat looks reasonably soft, but it's actually rather hard when you sit on it. Only just wide enough for 2 people to sit side by side, really. Of course, an English gentlewoman would be dressed in such finery. It would be quite impossible for her to climb up the roof deck, so she would have to be seated in here. A woman in kimono would have the same problem. Women's clothes are very impractical, aren't they? What's this? Oh, there's a lot of focus being drawn on the Crystal Tower, the centerpiece of the whole exposition. Ooh, it's under construction already. It's quite a large skylight, isn't it? Yes, quite large enough to afford a good view into the cabin from the roof deck. And there doesn't appear to be a handle or catch of any description. So I suppose it can't be opened from the inside of the cabin, at least. Now this is the driver's seat. Pray don't expect this, anybody. Try to understand the intricacies of British courts' cross-examination rights. He's taking a deep breath. Alright, my first cross-examination in a British court. Focus, Rhinosuke. Focus. Cross-examination. What the witnesses saw. It was last bustling evening, so I had a few customers. I remember it well. No point in not pressing on everything, really. Yes, I think it was sometime after 10, wasn't it? Oh, yes, sir, that's right, sir, yeah. Ever so cold it was, sir. Freezing, in fact. You had 4 passengers on board at the time, is that correct? Sorry, not driving the same... It's the... Yes, that's right, sir, not all driving the same parts of the bus, though. And there were no other passengers when the incident took place. None alighted, for example. You're quite right, that, sir. No other passengers? No, none. So nobody fled the scene of the crime, then. Say, Boston, is this song running? It does. Every evening, last bus of the day. I do wonder sometimes if it's altogether worthwhile. Yeah, sorry to say. What do you mean by that? Well, with it being so cold. So cold and everything, and only making 20 paces on the run. Yeah, I spent much of the pub just trying to warm up again. Victim and the man accused of killing him sat next to each other inside the bus.
Hold it!
And you saw them through the skylight in the roof of the carriage, is that correct? That's right. When you sit up on the top deck, the window's right there at your feet. There was a lamp on the inside, so I had plenty of good view. 2 of them were wearing hats, and I couldn't exactly make out either faces. There's not a shroud of doubt in my mind it was Mr. McGilded. And what makes you so sure? Well, how can I put this politely? Mr. Guild is a gentleman of rather small stature. I couldn't have mistaken him for anyone else. Let us not forget that when the vehicle came to a halt, the only people inside the enclosed cabin were the deceased Mr. Mason and Mr. Gilded. There is no room for doubt here. I really wish there was. Then out of the blue, the accused just reached over and plunged a knife right into his guts.
Hold it!
You saw the moment it happened, is that correct? Didn't I already testify to that? Or our hard-working city bankers not considered trustworthy these days? Oh, no, I just didn't mean that, but I mean... This is no good, I've really got his back up. Perhaps you could just tell us what you saw in a little more detail, if that's alright. My lord. Juror number 3. What's the meaning of this? Mine's made up, my lord. I completely and utterly made up. Made up about what? I don't like the stinking rich, never have. They're always up to something or other they shouldn't be. Every one of them. That little leprechaun's a man, no exception. Well, can't fool me. Oh my. There's no point wasting time listening to any more of this. That's my opinion on the matter anyhow. Hold it. That's precisely what I was about to say. transform on the jury, it's my duty to set a good example to my fellow jurors. What the? What's happening here? Let me see. Ah, yes, it seems that that's how the members of the jury give their verdicts. With fire? Apparently, yes. White for innocent, black for guilty. As the 6 members of the jury make up their minds about the case, one by one, they each cast a ball of fire in the great scales, as we saw a moment ago. So if those enormous scales fall completely on the black side, does that mean... Let's do our best to make sure that doesn't happen. Now I'm even more worried than I was before. Very well, the court acknowledges the change in the jury's stance. Counsel for the defense, please continue with your cross-examination. Ah, this is a nightmare. So I stabbed him. Screamed I did, I couldn't help it.
Hold it!
He stabbed him, you say, and you were sitting up on the roof deck, were you? Alright, so I was up on the roof seats. I remember seeing this little Jen sitting to a fellow who was stabbed. I've been thinking about a new hat design, you see, so I was just gazing absentmindedly around. But then I happened to look down through the skylight. It was sticking out right of his belly, that huge great knife. A grim sight indeed. Ah, that didn't help me at all. They look like they're even more convinced my client did it than they were before. That appears to have made everyone even more dubious that Mr. Gilda is telling the truth. If only we had some evidence to counter their suspicions. Mr. First. Oh, yes, sir? Is the Z-knife, is this the Z-knife you saw? Oh, good grief, yes, that's it. That's the very one, sir. Is that... Yes, counsel, this is the blade that was driven into the victim's belly like a stake to the heart. That is a blade of considerable size, counsel. It is, and furthermore, the scabbard is emblazoned prominently with a certain initial. The letter M, which seems oddly familiar. Please no. M for Magnus, perhaps, or McGilded, possibly. Take your pick. Seems like a particularly big name in London made a significant mistake. Objection. But there's M's everywhere. Less like a mason. Objection. This blade is far too extravagant for a poor brickmaker to have owned. No, this weapon of murder most certainly belongs to the accused. Not conclusive, but certainly compelling, counsel. Lord, if you'll forgive the interruption. Ah, Juror 2, go on. Mr. McGill is a peer of society and a gentleman. A gentleman's word should be sacrosanct. However, those of us in service know he must accept hard truths. What you're about to do? Dispose of the rubbish. No. I don't wish to cause offense, but I do like to eradicate all traces of filth and grime. Hold it. I have painstakingly typed every word out of here today and cross-referenced all the facts. As such, I'm now in a position to draw the only logical conclusion. Oh, interesting, so I can't just lose a case through penalties, it seems. Not again. That's 4 out of 6 who proposed a guilty. Only 2 left. We've had it. Every time I press these witnesses for more information, I just make the situation worse. Nevertheless, what we need more than anything at the moment is more information. We're still very much in the dark. I suppose I just have to keep pressing the witnesses and knowing that more sparks may well fly. We mustn't give up hope, won't cover something that will give us a way to fight back. Alright, I'll keep trying. I can't give up. I just need to keep calm and listen to the witnesses' statements again. Well, first of all, let's take this. A largish knife that was lodged in the victim's abdomen. Quality. The M. Could also be a W, of course, and I imagine that's going to be the case, because, yeah, that's how it usually goes. An ornate letter M, undeniably Mr. Magnus it's beautifully gilded. It must be valuable, I would think. Ah, what is it? Look at this M. If you turn it upside down, it becomes a W. This could change everything. W? Yeah, this is one of those, you know, turnabout cases, I'm sure of it. I'm afraid I don't know it all, but what am I sure of is this is an M. Well, that idea was quickly quashed. That part's the sheath, isn't it? Are you alright, Mr. Naruhodo? Sorry, yes, I just don't really like blades. Oh, those don't seem like the words of a man with a large katana slung from his waist. That's not a blade, that's Cosmo's soul. Anyways, there's no sense in delaying it. Let's see what the blade looks like. That looks like a lot of blood. It surely is blood, the victim's. An Englishman's blood looks a lot like a Japanese man's blood. Did you think it wouldn't? Sorry, I've only just arrived in Great Britain. I'm finding it a little hard to adjust to everything. Oh yes, I do understand. As soon as I heard the scream, I stopped my bus, and then I saw it too. I think this might be the key one, because he can't see the skylight. He's the driver. What exactly did you see? Well, so that would be the passenger, sir. Yes, he collapsed on the floor. Collapsed on the floor, he was. And by the passenger, obviously, you're referring to the victim, Mr. Mason, the brickmaker. And then the other passenger, the knife in his hand, like this. By the other passenger, obviously, you're referring to the accused, Mr. Magnus Begilden. And then he plunged down like this, stabbing the other passenger in the belly. Lord, I wish to speak. Yes, juror number 5. Do I take it you too? As the master of the London Guild of Coachmen, the idea of a murder being committed in one of the seated carriages is utterly abhorrent to me. It wouldn't be right to make a decision before hearing all the facts, though, I said to myself. But I've heard enough now. The horse is bolted, as they say. Oh no, please, just keep an open mind a little longer. Yep, now, Silver Blaze, finish in sight. Beppo is a long-standing member of the guild, and I trust what the man says. Oh, thank you, sir. You're too kind, sir. This is too unkind, sir. Which now means that the 5 jurors agree to condemn this man. Madam Juror number 6. Yes, dearie. What can I do for you? You've read the testimonies of witnesses in the stand. Oh yes, I certainly have. Still got my hearing, you know. Then, pray tell, why are you yet to pronounce your leaning? Well, dearie, the thing is, I'm a creature of habit, me. I always go to the park at around this time of day, sit on a nice bench and get on with my knitting. There's a lovely little park just near where I live. The McGilded Park it is. The gentleman donated to the city, you know. What a smile on the Londoner's face as he did. I can't imagine such a fine young gentleman would have it in him to take another man's life. Always do wonderful things in the city, that's right. One stabs one surely. Mother, can we go to McGilded Park a little very later and borrow more books? How many Londoners live with their heads in the clouds, do you people not know? What kind of a man Mr. McGilded really is? What kind of a man is he? The philanthropist, Miss Magnus McGilded, has enough wealth to purchase the entire city he claims to value so highly. But where did all that wealth come from? Your client is a charlatan, sir, one of the very darkest of souls. A what? Stone the crows. McGilded lends money at an extortion rate of interest, so his victims know for paying him. When they default, he takes possession of everything they owe. He's a vulture that preys on the weak. Oh. Okay, so that's actually rather nasty. I've never heard of this before. Your faculties have been deserted before, I'm sure, ma'am. Has the thought not crossed your mind? Would a man wealthy enough to buy London in its entirety not have a carriage of his own? What possible reason could this man have had to make use of a public omnibus service? You're not saying that the victim, a poor brickmaker, has next to nothing to his name save considerable financial liability. It would come as no surprise that his creditor was the accused. Let it also be known that the very day Mr. Mason was killed, the final repayment date for his debts. Why was this not brought up beforehand? Oh, good gracious. Good gracious. The brickmaker was destitute. He'd lost his house. He had not a shilling with which to repay his debts. And in the end, this pitiful soul, the very last thing he undertaken from his life. Why, the merciless philanthropist pretended, Magus begilded. I don't believe it. Hold it. I might add something briefly, Susanna. You claim the victim had lent money by Mr. McGilded, but where's the evidence to support your claim? But I forgive the discourtesy of filling my hallowed chalice with the law. Oh, there it is. His hallowed chalice. How can this be considered acceptable? But I find myself in an unexpectedly good humor. I heard ladies from the Far East could show great courage. I didn't expect to experience it myself. As judicial assistant to the defense, I'm simply doing my job. What a pity that your display of courage is in vain. This is the debtor's ledger, which details all the monies loaned by the accused. You will find the victim's name clearly recorded inside. Allow me to present this ledger as evidence. And pray forgive the discourtesy of raising my chalice in a toast to the enigmatic East at the same time. A marvelous toast, Counsel. I will gladly accept this new evidence. Ah yes, 20 gold pieces. Victim owned a considerable sum. Catalog people who borrowed money from the defendant at a high rate of interest includes the victim. Code 20. This portfolio almost contains all sorts of secrets of London's gentry. Oh dear, do you really think we ought to look inside? Well, it's not as though we know any of London's gentry personally, is it? Apart from our great detective friend, perhaps. Actually, I wonder. I sure will not find Mr. Sholm's name inside. Well, let's see what we do find. We have no choice if we want to get this case working. Gosh, it's crammed full of gentlemen's names, isn't it? Well, I suppose they're probably not all gentlemen at all, are they? After all, not everyone in this country is well off. Ah, goodness! What is it? Look at this, do you see the name here? Bruce Fairplay. Should that mean something? Sounds strangely familiar, actually. The witness is testifying in this very moment. A banker. Why is his name in here? I borrowed 20, did he? And look, the repayment date is fast approaching. It's possible this is just a coincidence, of course. This could be very useful information. Interesting. Yeah, it's possible he was involved with this murder to try and set him up so they couldn't pay. Gosh, it's crammed full of gentlemen's names, isn't it? Well, I suppose they're probably not gentlemen at all, are they? After all, none of this country's well off. Victim owned a considerable sum. And the accused made quite certain he had ample recompense. It would seem I've had the wool pulled over my eyes. Regrettably, madam, it is the modus operandi of the accused. That's a pretty little park, too. What a scoundrel. Still. Maybe it's all for the best. Ah, wait a minute. Let's think about this a little more. I don't stand for nonsense. Well, that was it. That's the last juror's decision. According to this Encyclopedia of British Law, when all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended. The presiding judge will deliver the final verdict and sentence. That's what it says here. Oh crap, the final verdict. It's over then. Oh. There's a footnote, though. A footnote. However, the defense. As all 6 members of the jury are now in agreement to the case. Allow me to convey your respect for a swift and righteous decision. According to the laws of the country, I will now conclude the trial by delivering my final verdict. I trust there are no objections. Mr. Zato, just tell me one thing. Oh, yes. You were in the middle of saying something before. Footnote in your Encyclopedia of British Law. However, the defense... What does it say next? Oh, yes, of course. When all members of the jury have concluded the defendant guilty, court proceedings are suspended and the presiding judge will deliver the final verdict. Then the footnote says, however, the defense has the right to demand a summation examination of the jurors at this point. Summation examination.
Objection!
A summation examination. From which country has that tome there been resurrected? Judging from the binding, I would say that book is at least 50 years old. Any modern text wouldn't even give such an antiquated procedure a mention. It's a relic, long forgotten, certainly no longer practiced. So I'm afraid you're out of luck. Oh. What even is it? The so-called summation examination. Oh, a moment, and I'll read about it. You would demand the right to a procedure before you even understand what it truly entails? Typical. Alright, I think I understand now. It seems under this procedure, we'd be able to appeal to the members of the jury. To do what exactly? Appeal to them to change their leading and reverse their decisions. It says here that... if successful, the proceedings of the trial must be resumed. Make them reverse their decisions. Yes, in times gone by, barristers would use a summation examination in an attempt to influence the jury's decision, but this procedure became something of a formality with no practical benefit, really, so it fell out of use. I wonder why. Oh, because it is devoid of purpose. Changing just one member of the jury's mind would be hard enough, let alone several. No self-respecting defense would even assert the right to try it in this day of age. Still, I don't see any mention of the procedure actually being formally revoked. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting, although maybe antiquated and largely forgotten, it isn't yet extinct. What do you think, Mr. Naohodo? A summation examination, our last possible option. We assert our right to carry it out or admit defeat. I mean, we have absolutely nothing to lose by trying it. The defense wishes to assert its right to a summation examination, my lord.
Objection!
London is the capital city of the most powerful nation on earth. We have a duty to the world to exemplify the very highest standards of judicial procedure. Summation examinations are an embarrassment that should be remained buried. But if it's our right, it's our right. It could prove vital in this trial. The defense's petition is perfectly valid. The court will proceed with a summation examination. This is madness. Poorman, are you and the remainder of the jury ready? I'm not, there's no mention of this in the letter I received, you see. Alright, all members on the jury will be asked to explain on what grounds in which they've reached their decision. On what grounds? You must all justify your decisions and explain why you believe the defendant to be guilty. Well, my lord, you're rather putting us on the spot. This is most irregular. No mention was made of this before. I don't really hold all this justifying lock. That seems to have thrown the jurors off. It seems none of them have experienced this before. Okay, this might Alright, the Summation Examination. A defense procedure no practicing lawyer has attempted for years, is it? Well, just maybe. It might be the opportunity we've been looking for. Turn this trial around. So be it then. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court hereby calls upon you to state the grounds on which you find the defendant, Magnus McGilded, guilty of this most serious crime. Judicial findings. The jurors' contentions. There was no one else inside the carriage at the time, so it has to have been him. I trust the driver. He has an excellent memory, it seems. 4 passengers, the fare is totaling 20 pence. He's still a good chap. Next to him, just like this brazen, I have to say. Absolutely brazen. I have simply typed and collected all statements made thus far and drawn a logical conclusion. You can trust the guild. Fair fares is our motto. We haven't raised prices above 4 pence for years. A scoundrel stabbing that man on the floor at beggar's belief. Into the floor. I'm starting to wish I hadn't pushed for this now. Some of the jurors don't seem to have wonderfully formed arguments, though, do they? Well, let's see what we can do. We need to get these 6 people to change their minds. I have to throw everything I can and use some very persuasive language. Just a moment, Mr. Naruhodo. According to my book, that's not quite how it works. Oh, I thought I was gonna have to throw their icy minds with some heartwarming rhetoric about the defendant. Unfortunately, once the jurors have decided the defendant's guilty, they're unlikely to heed anything defense says. Then, they've reached their conclusions by their own reasoning, you see. Your pleas will sound like excuses. In fact, it could recoil on you. The more you try to persuade them, the more entrenched they may become. And what on earth am I supposed to do? Oh dear, I'm just citing what I've read about the British law, Mr. Naruhodo. Right, I'm sorry. Do you have any idea how to make this work, then? Evidence, obviously. Well, from what I can understand, the key to this procedure is using the jurors' own words to make your arguments. What do you mean? Well, the 6 members of the jury are randomly selected members of the public. They may appear to present a united front, but the truth is, they are complete strangers who just happen to find themselves here in a courtroom together. And that's the way to break them down, you see? Yes, exactly. Ooh, this sounds fun, actually. We must listen very carefully to what each member of the jury says, and see if we can identify any contradictory statements. If we can, then we contrast the statements and pit the corresponding jurors against one another. See, so with contradictions the 2 or more jurors say we're looking for. In a way, this is similar to a regular cross-examination. Oh, yes, I suppose you're right. Alright, find contradictions in their statements, and pit the jurors against one another to break them down. Alright, I might be able to pull this off. No, that's not right. I have to pull this off. Can we start the proceedings, counsel? I would ask that you take the stand for this. I'm expecting a clear and concise rebuttal. Yes, my lord. Jury examination. The defense's rebuttal. Alright, the pairs are 20 pence. Ooh! She says it's 20 pence, but he says they never raised above 40. Your 2 statements directly contradict each other. They do. Explain yourself, counsel. Me? Oh dear, what have I said? I swore on the Silver Blaze's main name I haven't the frightest idea what we're talking about. According to the group testimony we've heard so far, there were 4 passengers on the omnibus the night in question. According to the coachman, Mr. Beppo, he took 20 pence in fares. Yeah, so they're technically spending 5 pence apiece. Quite right, have those precisely details printed. And juror number 5 told us the following. The fare for the omnibus is always 4 pence. That it is, a fair and convenient single price. Just the way London's carriages should be operated. But that doesn't add up at all. In fact, it leaves a glaring discrepancy in the facts. Why, man, why? 4 passengers paying 4 pence each. If you do the multiplication... it would be 16 pence. Exactly. As I said, it doesn't add up. The figures are different. By 4 pence, in fact. Or precisely, 1 person's fare. 1 person's fare? Yes. In other words, on the omnibus that night, it's distinctly possible there's another passenger we've heard nothing about. Good gracious! This can't be right. The coachman of the guild are good honest men. Oh no! Trustworthiness is a watchword. The figures our coachman claims certainly do not add up. Your watchword is a fallacy. I beg your pardon? Mr. Guildmaster, I think you ought to consider that if this trial were to end now, the news will surely spread all over London. The news that one of your coachmen tried to hide the fact he lets nefarious characters ride his omnibus. Alright then, how do I make it so this miserable trial doesn't end? Well, according to my book here, you simply launch a ball of fire to the innocent side to set the scales. Now hold your horses there, coachman. We were all in agreement. Why do you have to go in? Wait till I get my hands on you, Beppo. This is all very irritating. Begging your pardon, sir. I'm going to do the same. For the love of Mike, not you as well! A penny can be the difference between a smile and a tear, after all. I certainly can't put my trust in someone who doesn't follow my exacting standards in financial matters. Oh, really? I, for one, think it's only proper we hear from the witnesses again. Well done, you did it! If we match 2 more jurors' minds, we can force the trial to continue. 2 more, eh? Actually, there's something else that's bothering me about a couple of their assertions. That's where you must strike next, so I need to pit 2 more jurors against one another and show there's another contradiction in their assertions. Exactly! You can do it! Well, the scales of justice have shifted, but they have still weighed heavily on the side of guilt. Counsel, you have the floor again. Continue with their summation examination. Beppo, this trial has to continue so I can get the bottom of this. Oh, she's saying... So we just need to find 2 jurors with contradictory statements and pit them against each other. Which is easier than said than done. Was that perhaps what you were just thinking? How'd you know? Well, I took the liberty of doing some research in case you happen to find yourself in just such a situation. Shall I read you what I found out? It's a little long, I'm afraid. Well, why not? Very well. Listen to this. During the summation... Oh, this is a tutorial. You'll hear the assertion 6 members. Counsel for the defense should use R and pitch with impunity. When you've done so, you'll be able to compare the chosen assertion. Cannot choose the juror you initially selected, obviously. Jurors who have changed their leaning. Alright, one of them says he stabbed the side, the other says he stabbed down, so I need to pit those 2 together. See, she wasn't joking when she said it was long. First step is to listen very carefully to what each individual juror has to say. I'm sure you'll start to see which ones might not quite agree with each other. Alright then. Let's get this right now, so I never have to listen to that long and boring explanation again. That's the spirit. Well, whatever motivates you.
Objection!
We got him. Those 2 statements are completely contradictory. What? Explain, counsel, post haste. Oh, dearie me, I was only knitting a jumper for my other half. With all this claptrap, what does contradictory mean, I ask you? Well, we've heard from more than one witness. They allegedly saw the moment when the defendant stabbed the victim. Now, out of curiosity, juror number 3... What, get yourself busy here? How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim? What sort of motion was it? Ha! Want to test me, did you? Like this, stuck the fellow next to him without even getting up, just like the prim branker said. Yes, that was Mr. Fairplay's testimony, quite true. Now then, juror number 6. Oh, is that me, is it? What can I do you for, young man? How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim, madam? Oh, well, dear, as far as I understand it, it was like this. Stabbed the poor man after he'd collapsed on the floor. The coachman said so. Now don't move. Take a look at these 2 jurors. Stuck the fellow next to him without even getting up. And he stabbed the poor man after he'd collapsed on the floor. Well, I never. Their stabbing is totally different directions. What? That's my stitches. What this tells us is that there's a strong possibility one of the witnesses isn't telling the truth. Oh, but why? Why the dickens would they lie? I don't know that yet, but what I do know is that the trial ends at this point. We may never find out. We may never know the real truth. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, can you really let that happen in all good conscience? Lies, you say? Oh, dearie me. I can't abide people telling lies. Scales! I don't believe it. Wait. Now hear this, my fellow jurors. I warn you, you cannot listen to this man. Look at him in his black suit. He's clearly some devious Easter sorcerer using magic. If I could use magic, do you really think I'd be putting myself through all this? Answer me this, Mr. Jinx. Me? What exactly is the problem? What if 2 witnesses have slightly different recollection of events? Let's say he did stab the victim when he sat next to him on the omnibus, and this young man saw him do it. And now let's say the victim collapsed on the floor, and then Sherlock stabbed him again. This Tom. Well, let's say it didn't happen like that then. Who are you calling dandy, sir? Why, I should take this knife to you. Who are you calling old? Why, I should take this knee to you. They're ready to kill each other now. But could the foreman of the jury be right? Did the 2 witnesses see 2 different moments of the same crime? It is out of the question because a single stab wound, as you can see, is out of the question. Unfortunately, Mr. Foreman, what is it? You come on, out with it. What you're suggesting is impossible. It's out of the question. What are you talking about, man? How can you possibly say that? You do realize I'm only doing my job. The foreman of the jury, I have the responsibility to steer everyone in the right direction. So where's your evidence, man? That's what we want to see. I say the 2 witnesses saw 2 different moments of the same crime. You say it's out of the question, show me proof. Precisely, the autopsy report. Looks like the only way I'm gonna convince him is to present him with something he can't dismiss. Some irrefutable hard evidence, as you wish. What? I'll give you the proof. It is out of question the 2 witnesses saw 2 different moments of the same crime as proven by the autopsy report.
Take that!
Take that! This is the victim's autopsy report. According to what's written here, Mr. Mason was stabbed in the abdomen only once. Only once? It's quite simple. The victim was stabbed precisely 1 time. Which means these witnesses can't possibly have seen it happen 2 different times. Alright, I concede defeat. Weird, I thought he'd be one of the harder ones to convince. Wait, that means 4 jurors are leaning towards not guilty. Damn it, Mr. Naruhodo. We've won. What are you playing at, you fool? Shut your trap, sir. No one deceives me. We had a consensus. And I said, shut your trap. I know a liar when I see one. If the chap ever dares cross the threshold of my shop, I'll take this razor-sharp blade and shave every hair off his head. Please tell me he's a barber. Well, in quite a remarkable turn of events, the defense's summation examination has flipped the balance and scales of justice. The jurors now stand at 2 guilty, 4 not guilty. Accordingly, there is no longer a large enough majority among the jury for me to adjudicate. The trial must continue. I hereby ask the defense, prosecution, and witnesses to return to their places, and I call upon all of you to continue the pursuit of the truth. Alright, Lord Van Zykes, please continue to substitute the case for the prosecution. Substantiate the case for the prosecution, if you please. What is a man? Having savored the rich aroma which the carmine contents this hallowed chalice. It may seem crass to crush it to dust. Pray forgive the discourtesy. Lord Van Zykes? Is it cold in here, or is it just me? As your antiquated tome no doubt says, the prosecution may not speak during a summation examination. So I honored a deathly silence and listened to the charade. It seems I overestimate the intelligence of the jury. Oh dang, he's flat out insulting the jury. That's pretty gutsy. Well, no matter. There's nothing so hard as to prove self-evident truth, it would seem. No, and why else would we grace the courtroom with our presence after all? So, let us proceed to the next round of battle. Bring forth the witnesses once more. Witnesses, I trust you've heard the summation examination we've just had to endure. Oh, yeah, yes, sir, that I did, sir. Of course I heard it. Oh, yes, sir, I'd heard it. You saw on the other end, the coachman. I believe it's Beppo. Yes, sir, my lord said. If it transpires that you, in your previous testimony, you were attempting to veil the presence of a fifth member on your omnibus, you'll be found guilty of perjury. You're advised to bear that in mind, sir. Oh, dear. Now then, witches, I hereby call upon you to testify in the court again. You will explain the various misgivings brought to our attention by the defense's summation examination. Witness testimony. Various misgivings. I only carried 4 passengers, I swear it, but, well, I for one was told I had to pay 5 pence for that bus. He filled the fare, he did, and then I saw that blood-curdling sight was too much. I tell you, I saw McGill stabbing that man. Everything I said before stands. Yeah, he stabbed him, he did. I think so, yes. Counsel, make sense of this for me, please. The phantom fifth passenger conjured into existence by my learned Eastern friends never existed. The confusion has arisen from the coachman's sly little cozenage. Beppo, explain yourself. I'm terribly sorry, Guildmaster. The Guild's fare is 4 pence across the board, you know that. And am I to understand you've been overcharging our passengers by a penny a fare? It's so cold, and the last run of the day is always half empty. You have been dishonest, coachman. I'm sorry. You're a disgrace, Beppo, a disgrace! And your selfish actions have brought dishonor to the entire guild! If I may, sir, I had to pay 10 pence on the bus just last week. Wait, what? 4 passengers at 5 pence each is indeed 20 pence. I've done the arithmetic 10 times already, but I just can't make the final result come out differently. No, that figures. Well, it would appear that one of the aforementioned misgivings has already been explained. So, counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, if you please. We've already had the pleasure of a protracted summation examination today. I see you intend to continue the parlor games. Absolutely. I only carried 4 passengers that night, I swear, but,
Hold it!
Hold it. So there were only 4 passengers in our carriage, but you didn't charge them the standard 4 pence fare. Is that right? It's impossible to get a glass of run a day, pay. So cold, it was all I could do to stop myself passing out. I'm getting chill brain just listening to you. It was terrible. I was wanting to give myself a pat on the back for keeping the bus running. Doesn't a dedicated coachman deserve an extra penny per passenger? You're digging a deeper hole for yourself here. only there been a fifth passenger that night, then we would have had another suspect. Well, everyone was told to pay 5 pence for the bus. Alright, let's ask him to clarify. Alright, so does that mean everyone on board that night paid 5 pence instead of 4? Well, I paid 5 pence too, sir. I just told you I did. A flat fare of 5 pence across the board. It's not something to be proud of. The so-called discrepancy my learned friend identified as nothing of the sort. I mean, it is a discrepancy, the explanation was just different. Much like the Phantom Killer you so desperately needed, it's gone, dead and buried. I'd have been happy if it had ever existed in the first place. He was on the bear, and then I saw that blood curdling side as well. It's all too much.
Hold it!
This blood curdling sight, you mean the murder, I presume? Yeah, yes, sir. What a loathsome sight. No one should have to witness the horror of the eyes of a man in the last moments of his life. Oh, well, not exactly, sir. I mean, I didn't actually see the exact moment the gentleman was stabbed. Oh, good gracious. Really? We have another witness who did, however. The banker has already testified to it. But Mr. First didn't actually see that point to which the victim was killed. That may turn out to be very significant. Banker took a sharp intake of breath, so I went to look through the glass. That's a horrible blade poking out from his belly, covered in blood. Every time I see a knife now, I can't help screaming, even when meeting. Tell you what, I saw him stabbing that man. Everything I saw before stands.
Hold it!
Alright, so you saw the defendant, Mr. McGilded, stabbing the victim who was sitting next to him. That's what I said, isn't it? It was bothering me before, this was. For just a brief moment, he hesitated before answering the question. Anyway, there's only 2 of them inside the carriage, wasn't there? There's been much talk of a 5th passenger, but as of yet, 0 evidence. And why do we waste all this time for, eh? Black and white, the man's guilty. Something about Mr. Flayplay's testimony just jars with me. Wish I could work out what it was. Yes, he stabbed me, did? I guess.
Hold it!
Now, earlier you testified that you saw the moment when the defendant allegedly stabbed the victim, didn't you? Oh, yes, that's right. You said the victim was on the floor and described the assailant holding a knife in an ice pick grip. I suppose. I might have, yes, I might have put the cart before the horse, maybe. What is this? Well, I'm quite sure about most of it. I was driving a horse when I heard a scream from the seats in the back. Oh, I expect that was me, sir. And then when I turned around, yes, saw the skylight. The gentleman was on the floor and the knife was sticking out his midriff. That's right, yes, the fellow holding that handle was the famous man, yes. So in short, you didn't see the moment when the victim was actually stabbed, is that correct? I really thought I did, but when I go over to get my head, no, I suppose I didn't actually see the precise moment of the stab.
Truth! Excuse me.
Excuse me. Do you have something to say about that, Mr. Fairplay? Oh, listen to me. I know what you're thinking. You didn't see the exact moment the fellow was stabbed. What are the chances of that? Are you asking me or telling me? He's getting flustered. I may be able to extract some new information from him if I answer cleverly. Could he have happened to see the exact crime was committed? No, he couldn't have, because remember, he turned around because of the scream, and and Mr. First directly stated he screamed he did not see the time of the murder, only after. Well, it is a little hard to believe, certainly. Unless you spend your time peeping through a skylight at the top of an omnibus, that is. Peeping? Respectable city bank robbery, no? I know what I saw. I remember as clear as a ball that day. It was a grim scene, I don't mind telling you. Thank you, Mr. Fairplay. Oh, excuse me if I got a little hot in the collar, my lord. I would ask you to supplement your testimony with a clear statement about what exactly you saw. Oh, I can do that, alright. I'll just tell you how grim it was. Okay, this is what we needed. You think I'd forget the sight of those blood-soaked hands after the butcher stabbed the man?
Hold it!
Blood-soaked, you said? Ahem, well. Perhaps Soaked is a bit laying it on a little thick, but... Anyway, there was definitely blood all over them. Both of them were covered in it. And you saw that from the roof, the skylight. Well, the skylight's reasonably large, so I had a pretty good view. And there was a lamp inside the carriage as well, so I'm quite sure of what I saw. It's Banker's latest statement. Feels sure there's not quite right about it. Yeah. When you feel something doesn't add up, that's when you should have a good look through the court record. Not long ago, this trial very nearly came to an end. Somehow, we've managed to keep our chances alive here. I can't waste this Chronicles examination. I have to use it to bring some new facts to light. If you're not careful when you press these witnesses, the danger is the jury will end up believing something unhelpful as they did before. Maybe we can't let the fear of that happening stop us from uncovering important new information either. Yes, you're so right. I need to pay careful attention here. I don't want to miss even a flicker of a reaction among the witnesses. Remember, if you happen to spot one of the witnesses reacting in a strange way, don't hesitate to pursue them as a reason. Alright, I already have the part I need. I just need to open the court record. Oops. I'm zipping by a bit too quickly here, I guess. The gloves are obviously to what I need to present here. Blood-soaked hands. Well, I admit the soak might be laying all thick, but anyway, there was definitely blood all over them. Blood, pull them covered it. Well, I'm very sorry to disagree, Mr. Fairplay, but that's more than a little peculiar. What? I like when you had his hand resting on the sword like that. You see, here are the gloves worn by the defendant on the night in question. Oh, yes, right. And there certainly does appear to be a sizable dark-colored stain there, but as I'm sure you can clearly see, it's only on the right-hand glove. In short, Mr. Fairplay, your testimony is inconsistent with the evidence. Yeah. Well, no, that can't be right. So you're the liar here, then? That's right, you were quite clear about it. You said, it was both hands. Mr. Fairplay, if your last statement was a lie, it calls your entire testimony into question. You say you saw the moment was stabbed, but is that really the truth? Alright, well,
Objection!
It was a simple mistake. You can't justify accusing this man of lying. Yeah, it wasn't both hands, it was only one. The fact remains. The victim's blood was on the accused. No, Mr. Fairplay categorically stated he saw blood all over both hands, which means a strong possibility this witness was deliberately trying to mislead the court. Why? I'm a city banker, for city's sake. My word will be gold standard. I'm a gentleman, not some gutter snake. Upstanding member of society don't... He's claiming to have no reason to lie. Is that really the case? Mr. Naruhodo, if we had some evidence to explain why Mr. Fairplay might be lying, it'd turn the tide in this trial completely. Something to show this man has a compelling reason to lie. Oh, I have evidence. We've been preparing for this. My lord. Yes, Consul. The defense is ready to present evidence. By Jove, are you sure? Yes, evidence that will clearly demonstrate why Mr. Fairplay had a reason to lie in his testimony. Ah? Very well. I hereby call the defense to present the evidence. The evidence that demonstrates a motive for the witness's alleged deception of the court.
Take that!
This is a list of the debtors who owe money to Mr. McGilded. Yes, a list of innocent victims crippled by the accused extortion. The point is, among the names of these debtors in your name, Mr. Bruce Fairplay is one of them. What? Mr. Fairplay, are you currently indebted financially to the accused? No, well, it's barely worthy of being called a debt. According to this ledger, you owe 20 gold pieces. Not an inconsiderable sum of money, wouldn't you say? Well, what of it? Well, let's suppose Mr. McGilded were to be found guilty of murder. That would become what would become of your debts in that case? These documents state that the loan agreement is forged between two individual parties. Therefore, were the creditor, the defendant here, sentenced to a capital punishment, all outstanding debts to be owed to him would be annulled. In other words, they would cease to exist. Cease to exist? Mr. Fairplay, is that not the case that you claim in your testimony to have seen something you never, in fact, saw, in a devious attempt to annul your debt? Mr. Ordered! Mr. Bruce Fairplay! Yes, my lord. Let me ask you again, and be aware that your answer may have most serious implications upon your future, sir. Did you or did you not see the precise moment at which the defendant is alleged to have thrust a knife into the victim? Your silence speaks volumes. You did not tell the truth in your testimony. Alright, let's not make a melodrama out of this. Perhaps I did overstate the truth a pinch. A pinch? But it makes no difference. I definitely remember seeing blood on Mr. McGilded's hands, both of them. And yet only one of the defendant's gloves, which we have here as evidence, is stained. So you keep saying. I wonder if I might be allowed to speak, sir. Go ahead, Mr. First. Well, the thing is, I recommend seeing it myself as it happens. Seeing what? The blood, sir, on the assailant's hands. I think, yes. I'm almost sure that there was blood on both of them, sir, not just one. What? Wait, at the back of all the way back there, how do you smack into it? It appears we're going to need further testimony from all your witnesses. This time, I would like to know precisely what you did and what you did not see. Do I make myself perfectly clear? Yes. Mr. Naruhodo, this is good news. The course of the trial seems to have shifted slightly at last. Yes. I might finally have a chance to turn things around here. Witness testimony. But then, this is really something. There's blood on both hands of the assailant. I sincerely and distinctly remember that. However, I suppose you might say that I didn't see the exact moment the stabbing transpired, if that matters. I don't remember seeing the knife, and I do remember seeing blood on attackers' blood on both of them. I didn't actually say anything myself. No, not until I heard the scream. Anyway, the fact remains, there couldn't have been anyone else in that carriage, or we all would have seen. Well, lo and behold, in truth of the fact, not one of you was a witness the crucial moment, the time the crime was perpetrated. I apologize, my lord, but honestly, there was no one else inside that carriage, and the man's hands were covered in blood. That much incriminating evidence is tantamount to saying we saw the man do it. That's really not what testimony is about. Let's examine the interior of the omnibus once more. The victim's fresh blood is clearly visible on the seat, corroborating the witness's accounts. In other words, there is no substantial nor significant change in the facts of the case. Very well, your cross-examination, please, counsel. Yes, my lord. There was blood on both hands of the assailant. However, I might say I didn't see the exact... Tried if that at all matters.
Hold it!
I mean, don't try to downplay this. Whether or not I saw the exact moment of a crime is a matter of fundamental importance, as well you know. But for crying out loud, we all know no one possibly done it. I was just trying to save us all some time. You have a loan of 20 guineas outstanding with the defendant, do you not? Had you hoped to release yourself from that financial burden by ensuring the defendant was found guilty? That's not entirely not what I was hoping for. I just lost a little penny or 10 when I backed the wrong horse, the Derby is all. I was going to win it all back. There's a fixture in this weekend that's a sure thing. A little one or 10. I'm a banker. No one bats an eye if I borrow spending money for the weekend. I think you may have revealed... I think you may have revealed rather more about your character than you bargained for, sir. The witness's scruples are not on trial here. Proceed to the next witness. Is that really how it's supposed to work? I remember seeing the knife, and I remember seeing both the attackers' hands with blood on them.
Hold it!
And you definitely saw that too, both on hands. I wish you could ask if those were with gloves or without, but I'm sure they'd say. But yes, sir, I mean, I know what you're going to say. I want a glove a sign of glove on it. Which is right. Thing is, as far as I remember, sir, when I looked down and saw Mr. Gilded sitting on beside the other fellow, I don't believe he was ever wearing any gloves. He wasn't wearing these gloves? Okay, this is actually what I wanted precisely. So I'm correct, sir, and I saw the blood on both his bare hands quite clearly. It's true the dark colored stain on the leather gloves wouldn't have been easy to see. I should point out that the police officer who apprehended the curse the night in question reported there was no trace of blood on Mr. McGilded Glove's hands. So there wasn't blood on his hands. This is puzzling indeed. That must be significant somehow, I'm sure of it. Anyway, the fact remains there can't have been anyone else inside that carriage, or we all would have seen. I think I can technically show the carriage because you can only see one half of the carriage through the skylight.
Hold it!
Let's check it out first. And everything saw the incident was through the skylight on the roof of the omnibus, is that correct? That's right, it was fiercely cold that night, but the glass wasn't frosted over. Oh yes, I remember it shivering, so bitter. Which rather begs the question of why the pair of you were sitting on the roof deck in the first place. I don't know about this young fellow, but I couldn't enter the cabin. Oh, why not? It was locked from the inside. I tried knocking, but no one opened the door. It was locked? That's right. As a public bus service, for pity's sake, this is not what I call fair play. Yeah, I had exactly the same experience. I tried knocking, but the gentleman inside just gestured me to clear off. So I had no choice but to climb up the roof deck and look down longingly into the warm cabin below. I could sure I wasn't just looking down, I was glaring long and hard. That's precisely why I can tell you with absolute confidence that if there was anyone else on that cabin, I would have noticed. Unequivocal, I would say. I'm not sure about these two witnesses. They really have seen everything inside the cabin through the skylight. That's what... They might not have been able to, actually. Allow me to confirm one thing, Mr. Fairplay. You were riding this omnibus and witnessed the events in the cabin through the skylight on the floor of the upper deck, correct? Is that right? That's right, yes. In that case, there is a portion of the cabin interior that would have been out of sight from you. What? My golly, really? Obviously, at this stage, we can't say for sure, but the possibility cannot be denied. At the time of the incident, there could have been one last passenger enclosed in the cabin of the omnibus. Enough hypothetical meandering. The prosecution demands that you substantiate your claims. After all, the scene of the crime is right here in the flesh. Very well, I will uphold the prosecution's demand. You will identify the area on this cross-sectional plane of the omnibus. Where exactly the omnibus are you suggesting is this potential extra passenger could have been situated? Assuming they were here, it could be here.
Take that!
Both rows of seats on the roof face the direction of travel, whereas the seats in the enclosed cabin face each other, which means a visible part of the cabin which passengers on the roof can see through the skylight is as I've drawn here. Ah. That's right, my lord. As you can see, the seats opposite the one the victim and his attacker were sitting were obscured from view. In other words, if someone had been sitting on that seat, it's quite possible these witnesses would have been completely unaware of it.
Objection!
It's quite possible some phantom was sitting there. Oh, you have a forbidding habit of obscuring the truth with ambiguity. I concur with the prosecution's rejoinder. In the British course of law, evidence is paramount. I cannot entertain this conjecture, counsel. That is, unless you're able to put a name with this mysterious passenger with whom you allude. Can you? I honestly don't know. Who could have been? Yeah, I don't think it's anyone we've met. I honestly don't know who could have been. Who could have been the other seat that was out of sight from the witnesses on the roof deck? I have literally no idea. As a proud citizen of the Japanese Empire, you will look to the sky and walk on, making sure all signs of tears are gone. Go on. This isn't just a case of going on, Miss Susato. Alright then, I'll go on. The defense would like to put forward a name. You are a fool. That response was a desperate attempt by a man who has no notion of his own limitations. A toast to hard lessons not yet learned. Let's not delay, counsel. The defense is still to name the passenger in the other seat. This could be the chance I've been waiting for to turn the trial in my favor. On that night of the murder, the person occupying the seat in the omnibus cabin was... Oh! That's right! It was Mr. McGill himself, because remember, he had no blood on his hands, yet they saw the killer have hands. The passenger in the enclosed cabin with the witnesses on the roof deck failed to see. Has to have been Mr. Magnus McGilded himself. Mr. McGilded? What are you talking about, counsel? That's the name of the defendant!
Objection!
Threw it in the... If I desecrate this chamber by smashing my hollowed chalice, do forgive the discourtesy. Lord Van Zykes. People talk of these tiny island nations in the Far East as having a learning and culture of their own, but I see they use the terms ill-advisedly. What are you trying to say? Let me explain the terms even a student of the artless backwaters as yourself might understand. When the bloody scene unfolded, the victim and his assailant were sitting side by side. Multiple witnesses attest to that fact. It's the very premise on which this case was built. But that premise may be wrong. What? If the victim really was sitting beside Mr. McGilded, it creates an inconsistency that can't be reconciled in any way. What inconsistency, counsel? The defense gloves, my lord. Both the witnesses made the same testimony. They both claim there's blood on both hands of the person sitting next to the victim.
Objection!
Yet we know the truth to be otherwise. Only one glove bears the gore remains. The point is, even in the face of this irrefutable evidence, both witnesses have maintained their stance. Yes, their testimony remains unchanged. Exactly. They both adamantly swear. They clearly remember seeing blood on both hands of the assailant. In short, their memory of events is correct, and their testimony reveals the truth. If it was somebody else sitting beside the victim that night, a third party we've yet to identify, and the victim's blood was on the passenger's hands, both of them.
Objection!
And who was this third party? Obviously, the true culprit. Extraordinary. Order. What exactly are you postulating? The defense's postulation is just that, nothing more than conjecture. Witnesses have clearly stated that they saw the accused. But when elaborating on his testimony, Mr. Fairplay said the two of them were wearing hats, and I couldn't exactly make out their faces. Yes, the tops of their heads were obscured by the roof. I could see the rest of them, though. Yeah, that's right, both gents were most certainly hatted. Hatters do tend to know such things. And what peculiar style of hat did the two gentlemen sport, Mr. First? I'm afraid I don't remember. And you call yourself a hatter? The style of hat makes no difference. There was no third passenger in that cabin. How can you be sure? Because if there had been, the accused Mr. McGilded would undoubtedly have offered to dispose that fact. Unless that is, you are proposing an even more preposterous explanation. Remember, he says he always goes to sleep whenever he's in a cabin. The accused failed to even notice the presence of a true culprit in the very cabin in which he traveled. He's right. If there was another person traveling in the enclosed cabin of the omnibus, it's inconceivable Mr. McGilded would have been unaware of it, unless of course he was asleep at the time. Order! There's clearly a simple solution to this problem. Bring the accused, Mr. Gilded, to the stand. Well, what say you, counsel? The prosecution objects, my lord. On what grounds? As a suspect, he will have already made a full statement to the police. But what if there's some reason why he's unable to speak freely? Mr. McGilded is no uneducated ruffian. If indeed it turns out the man has been withholding information, you can be sure it will have been the most deliberate act. Counsel for the defense, what is your opinion? Lord. We should probably push for his testimony. Yeah, we need to hear what he has to say in order to find out the truth. The defense would like to call Mr. McGilded to the stand. Alright, in that case, I would like to hear the opinion of the jury. Yes, I need a little time to consider this. If you ask me, I think we should hear what Mr. McGilded himself has to say. Get the man out here, I say. It would be utterly illogical not to hear his testimony. Something to do and get it done, that's our one thing to the guild. Hearing what the patron of my favorite little park has to say. Oh yes, that would be lovely. Yes, the jury says the man must be heard. Very well, the court shall... Defendant's testimony. Bailiff, show the defendant to the stand at once. Now, maybe what actually happened that night will finally become clear. Alright, let the proceedings resume. Mr. McGilded, have you been listening to the discourse of the day? To be sure I have, my lord. Alright, there are now two matters of which the court desires to hear from you. The first is whether or not there was a third party with you in the omnibus cabin as proposed by the defense. The second is that if such a person was indeed present, why did you conceal that fact from the police? Oh, got it. No, it is not my nature to hide anything at all. Just answer the question, please. The matter is, I've been desperate about this all along. I tell you all to keep my mouth shut. Tell us what, Mr. McGilded. The fine fellow represent me is absolutely right. And the carriage of the night with myself and the other man, there was one other passenger. It's true? Aye, and 'twas me who helped the little urchin get away with it after it happened. You what? No, Miss McGilded, that convenient excuse cannot save you now. I'm truly sorry I am, Lord Van Zykes. I'm sure you'll be wanting to know why I said no when I was taken in by the police. I do be having a very good reason, I assure you. Which was? Well, the little child was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and not in any way involved, you see. What? If the police had known the wee one was there, they'd have assumed she'd done it. They'd have hauled her into this classroom just like myself. I was only trying to spare her that. Young hearts and young minds are easily damaged, my lord. And who is this young child of which you speak? Oh, that I don't know. You don't know? Ah, well, we think just happened to be in the carrot at night. Never saw it before or since. We have absolutely no reason to believe this man. The prosecution calls the witness's statements to be disregarded by the court. Well, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if the urchin isn't here in this courtroom as we speak. Listen to the proceedings. What? Ah, smoke. Fire, there's a fire. Someone's trying to get away after them. It's no use. I can't see anything through the smoke. What is going on? Be careful, Mr. Naruto. Cover your face. Bailiff, don't let the accused escape. Secure the omnibus. I hereby call an emergency recess. Bailiff, ensure the defendant is in custody. Clear the courtroom. We were hurriedly removed from the smoke-filled courtroom by the bailiff. And amid scenes of chaos as people stumbled over one another in a desperation to flee the chamber. We had no idea what was happening. All we knew was that, for the time being at least, the trial was suspended. 2 hours. Not bad. Unfortunately, I did start a bit late tonight, so I think now is going to be a good time to stop it. There we are. And that'll be all for tonight. Alright, thank you for watching. Hope you had a good time. I'll see you next time.